Hey, welcome back. Today's video is about that initial brass prep and load development for the fireforming loads for the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, being fireforming loads that I'm not going to fireform for the entire life of the barrel, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of effort doing load development for this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the least possible amount of work just to get control of my velocity enough that I can have adequate dope in order to shoot a PRS match or two with it. Once all of that is fireformed, we're going to go ahead and get all that brass through the process once, get it all equalized out real nice, and then we're going to do actual load development up to the high node. But for this video, we're going to talk about the low node because I like to shoot at the low node for the first firing on any brass, just to harden up that head just a little bit more before I start pounding on it pretty hard with a full charge. The other limitation to this particular scenario is the magazines. All I have on hand are AI magazines with binder plates in them. That means I'm limited to an overall length of 2.870 inches, and my loaded length is actually 2.867 inches overall, tip to base, because I don't want to jam up the magazines. Now, interestingly enough, that is between 60 and 67 thousandths off of touch, but magazines should be a different video all of its own, so we'll talk about magazines later. For right now, all you need to know is I had to load shorter than my intended overall length and anywhere near touch in order to get these rounds through the rifle. It's about getting things done sometimes around here. I decided to go with the low node. Now, we know that the 6.5 Creedmoor is going to shoot somewhere near 2,850 feet a second with that 140 grain hybrid at a full house charge. Now, we can go a little higher than that without blowing up the brass, but we don't know how much higher. And as such, we don't want to be firing a new barrel that is speeding up at those kinds of speeds because you may find yourself over pressure by the end of a match. Instead, we want to be at the low node so we can harden up the head of the case just a little bit, and that also allows us the opportunity to have the rifle speed up without damaging the brass. So here's what I did. I went out and I just shot a simple powder charge ladder at 100 yards, chronographing more than anything. I wasn't looking at groups, I was looking at what the chronograph was telling me. And the chronograph told me that at about 2730 to 2740, I had a spot where not only did it group well, but it also seemed to be relatively stable for vertical point of impact. So what I do with that? I took 3 charges surrounding that area and shot them next to each other, 10-shot groups at 100 yards. Now, this is nothing to write home about, but it does show you something about good rifles. A good rifle with a good barrel from a good gunsmith is not going to shoot big. It doesn't matter if you're out of the node completely, this is a scatter node right here, or relatively in the node, it's still going to shoot reasonably well in any of these scenarios. As a matter of fact, this doesn't go much over 3/4 of a minute of angle at all, if that one is even that big. What I'm telling you is if you have a rifle that shoots 2 minutes of angle with one load and half a minute with another load, you may be fooling yourself a little bit on the performance of your rifle. Good rifles don't shoot 2-minute of angle groups. Shooters do, but rifles don't. So what did I choose out of all this? Well, this is 40.4, 40.6, and 40.8 grains of H4350. I did go with the 40.8 grains, even though it shot just a little bit bigger for this 10-shot group. The reason I did that is the velocity spreads were a little bit reduced at this charge. And the reason that I think those are a little bit reduced is my experience with H4350. As the pressure starts to come up on that powder, the ES reduces. That's why you find me shooting H4350 at near maximum charges for any cartridge that I'm using it in. Low charges in H4350 seem to spell high ES. You'll just have to trust me on that because I've burned more of these jugs than I care to admit over the years shooting F-class. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how did it shoot? Well, that's the next video. Because that video, which was intended to be shot with the old stock and just the new barrel and cartridge, ended up being shot with a new chassis. So we had a combination of issues that may have contraindicated each other, should we say. What I will say is never once did I have a good hold for a good shot and miss the target because of the load. On the other hand, I missed plenty for other reasons. But you'll have to wait for that video. All right, guys, until next time, shoot straight, and I'll see you in the next video.